welcome to another episode of Will's Review. I'm your host, Will D. And today we're going to start off with a little bit of sports. So back to the formula, right? So far the World Series has been a dead draw. 2-2 is the series between the Rays and the Dodgers. I think the biggest thing to talk about from this series is the fact that nobody seems to be watching. This is probably one of the lowest recorded ratings for a World Series championship. Some argue it's because a lot of fans are upset about the short season. Some argue that it's that the whole nobody really cares about sports this particular year. It's not the same vibe without the crowds and the this and the that. And others argue that it's about the teams that are actually there. Although the Dodgers are a big market team and the Rays are constantly a good team, they just don't have the same fan appeal. It's been a very awkward and questionable season for baseball, as it is for just about every other sport. I honestly just think that this says a lot more about the sport than it does the actual teams playing or the importance of the World Series. I think baseball has taken a major drop in appeal in America. It used to be the All American sport and America's favorite sport and all that. I mean, NASCAR is literally ranked number one with the most viewership, second by the NBA, but MLB was always up there, and I feel that it's actually grown more so in international appeal and lacked in American appeal. We like more action, more back and forth between the teams and such like that. I hear a lot of people don't like watching baseball on TV. They like to actually go to the games. So when you lose the capability to actually go to the games, it's gonna cripple a big market. The sports announcers don't make baseball too much fun. There's a lot of dead time where at least when you're at the stadium you can get caught up in the music and the wave and this and the whole experience of it. I don't know what to say. I honestly don't think in the next 100 years baseball is gonna last in the U.S. as a major sport. I honestly feel that way. Not to say that it's a bad sport. I love baseball, but Americans just don't talk about it the same way they used to. I mean, even as long as 20 years ago. Not just in New York, but all over. I don't hear hype about it. I don't see memes about it. I don't see posts about it. And if you're not trending on the internet, it says a lot. When the bubble was going on, a lot of controversy still about the NBA and what was going on there. A lot of people still talking about football. A lot of people talk about hockey even when that was going on, and hockey was making the news. But baseball just kind of seems to be under the radar, and it's still one of the big American sports, but barely. Um, so hopefully, as a league, they figure out how to make it more interesting. And I would suggest trying to figure out doing some of the things that cricket did, because cricket it changed the rules of the game in certain places, and it made it more fun, and it made people more interested and in the modernization of the sport. And maybe that's something that needs to happen to baseball. So something to consider for MLB there, as this World Series is really just and it's supposed to be big money market for them. Now, other than that, there's not too much in major sports going on, as the NBA just finished. The NFL is going on currently, but it's still early season, and in New York, ain't nobody really winning, so let's skip it. And I mean, let's just be real, right? We'll talk about it really when either the New York teams have a chance, which they won't, or when we hit the playoffs when it actually matters. But tonight is a big night for sports entertainment, as Hell in the Cell is going to be hitting on the WWE Network and on pay per view. Now, this isn't a plug for WWE Network, but I mean, in all honesty, people, why are you spending $60 for one pay per view when you can get 12 for twice the amount? It just doesn't make any sense to me. And really, you get 12 for the price of like 11. So it's not even a plug; it's just a logical thing. Because the fact of the matter is, folks, if you're going to buy Hell in the Cell tonight, I'm trying to save you $60. Don't do it. There are 5 matches on the card that are listed. We don't know if there are going to be any surprise matches, anything listed, but there are 5 listed matches on this card. And I find that really disappointing, even though I know they have smaller rosters, because frankly, it's 5 matches for a pay per view. We see more matches on a Monday Night Raw. And when this happens, they're going to stretch out a match much longer than they're going to do. So there's not going to be as much action. There's going to be a lot of those moments where they're kind of both like exhausted on the floor. And it's a night where there's no disqualification. So there's no 10 count to rush them to actually do stuff. I am going to project a rating of 2 stars for this event, right? But I'm going to make prediction now about who's going to win these very boring matches. Why? Because that's my job. So, first we're gonna talk about Sasha Banks versus Bailey, right? Now, for me, this is a match I've seen one too many times already. I'm not very interested. I honestly think at the end of this night, Bailey will walk away with the title. I just think that it's the dumb move to make. Sasha Banks right now is a good person to win the championship because A, historically, she doesn't hold on to titles. She loses at the very next defense. She lasts for about a month, if not even a week. It's a good opportunity to A, use her to put the title on somebody else. Why? Because Sasha is constantly leaving WWE to pursue side projects. I think her last thing, she's going to be featured in the next season of The Witcher. She produced an album. She does fashion stuff, a lot of commercials. She's made her name and her brand larger than WWE. But she still loves to wrestle. She still comes back, and she's still a fan favorite. So utilize the fact that she's usually just an interim champion anyway. Take the title from Bailey, who's had it from way too long, and it keeps their relationship the way that it should be for future storylines. It also allows you now to put the belt on somebody different because someone who got screwed from a belt in NXT is the EST, and so perhaps putting the belt around her waist. Or there's so many other women in the locker room, as long as it's just not someone from Canada who's been there way too long. And I'm not going to say names, but anybody who watches knows exactly who I'm talking about. So give Sasha the belt. I really hope, but honestly, at the end of the night, Bailey's probably going to walk away with it just because Sasha's probably going to go on another hiatus. Let's just be real. Uh, Next we have a match that really just doesn't seem to make any sense in promoting, but uh, Jeff Hardy versus Elias. Right, of the few matches that you're ever gonna get in this, Hell in the Cell, really that I think this is a storyline that was built up in what, two sneak attacks, if even that, and one that no one cares about is definitely that match on the card that, because no one cares about, has the opportunity to be a great match, or could have if Jeff Hardy was 20 years younger. I mean, Elias is a very stiff wrestler with no real major signature move. His greatest feat is hitting people over the head with a guitar and singing crappy music. Jeff Hardy, we love Jeff Hardy. He's the enigma, brother Nero at times, but he's not the Jeff Hardy of old, and you see it in his movements. I think that he's found a style that works with his age, but when you need someone to really carry a match and carry someone into promoting, this is not the person you need to build back Elias, who was riding a huge wave before injury. I think they're still gonna have Elias win this match tonight, and I think that's gonna be the point of it. Elias, making a statement, I'm back. But all in all, this is probably the match I'm least excited about in tonight's Hell in the Cell. We also have Randy Orton versus McIntyre. So here's the thing. This is Randy Orton's match to win. Period. McIntyre's had a back and forth with Orton for months just because McIntyre doesn't really have a storyline with anyone. His biggest storyline was coming back with Dolph Ziggler, and Dolph Ziggler found Rude when he was no longer attached to McIntyre. There's no rival for McIntyre. There is none. He took out Lesnar. He had his back and forth with his friend, and then Randy Orton popped into the picture. And the thing about it is, when Randy Orton pops up in the picture, it's because it's time to change the belt. So they get McIntyre a few wins to show that he's a great champion, and tonight's the night where the rivalry ends. Orton takes the belt. He'll probably beat him on another episode of the weekly events, and then Orton will move on, and the title will pass in about another pay per view or two. Orton wins the title tonight. Otis will fight The Miz for the right of the Money in the Bank contract. Although I feel like it makes way more sense for Miz to win, I have a funny feeling that despite the end of him and Mandy Rose on camera, people want Otis. People want to see Otis with the Money in the Bank because it builds for fun comedic moments in a time where WWE doesn't have a lot of great storylines. It's just that simple. Otis needs something to be relevant. Heavy Machinery has been taken out of the tag team picture for a while due to injury. And I think that even having Otis as the possible out of nowhere champion, if even for 1 month, could do a lot for WWE right now. So I think by the end of the night, Otis will walk away with Money in the Bank. Now, if we're talking about being conventional and yada yada yada, the Miz should easily win this match. It's no problem. You know, he'll run around because he has a size disadvantage, and then he'll hit him with some sneak moves, break a couple of rules, and then walk away with the contract. That's how the match should go. But in the end, Otis will, persevere, and Otis will leave with the contract, and I will see by WrestleMania him attempting and possibly even failing, because every now and again we need someone to fail, and Otis is the perfect person to do that. Failing to utilize the contract to win a major belt. But last but not least, before we go to commercial breaks, we have Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso, the fight for the Big Kahuna, essentially. And look, I'm really not a big fan of this storyline. One, Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso, they really built themselves up as a tag team. There's nothing in any of their repertoires that is signature to them. The super kick, Shawn Michaels. The frog splash is how many other people, and everybody knows that either Rob Van Dam or Eddie Guerrero is probably your favorite. Hell, Rey Mysterio is there now, giving the shout out to Eddie Guerrero. Like, let's just be real. Nothing about their repertoire is actually unique. They're fun to watch. They don't even do the haka thing anymore. They're trying to do the ghetto black thing, even though I'm like, bro, you're not. You married a black woman. That doesn't make you black. That's white people problems right there. They don't, they're just not in it. And when you have Roman Reigns, who's legitimately, become a face for this company, and not a face in the wrestling terms, but literally, like, when you WWE, you associate it with someone like Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Brock Lesnar, even though he doesn't even want to be a part of it anymore. There's certain faces that come along with the brand. Roman Reigns is one of those faces. There's no way in hell, even at Hell in the Cell, that Jey Uso should walk away with this title, even if him and his brother pull twin magic, a Bella move. Like, there is nothing unique about them. I'm not even hating on them. It's just a fact. And so tonight, Roman Reigns with the mouthpiece Paul Heyman should walk away with the belt, and hopefully they stop this really annoying, what feels like an over-the-top pull at their culture, like, moment in WWE. Like, it's really, I'm so annoyed by it, because I feel like I'm not even Simone, and this is somehow offensive to me. What they're doing, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, Roman Reigns walks away with the belt, as he should. On that note, we're gonna go to a first commercial break. When we come back, there's some things we need to talk about, especially
Hi, I'm Charles Aloma, and I want to thank you for watching the LDM Network. For more information on this show or any other show, please go to www.ldmnetwork.net. Again, that's www.ldmnetwork.net. And now, let's get back to our show.
Hey everybody, I'm Will D.
I am Javier Luis.
I'm Alex Polanco.
I'm Apollonia Cruz.
And I'm Kelly Cooper.
I am Shirley Phillips.
I am Emmanuel Anzule.
Do you know 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence
During their lifetime?
And domestic violence and abuse can happen to anyone,
regardless of gender, race, or other factors.
2 out of 3 homicide cases are
Females who were killed by a family member or intimate partner.
As domestic violence victims, they face high rates of depression,
Sleep disturbances,
anxiety,
flashbacks, and other emotional distresses.
And without help, witnesses of domestic violence are more vulnerable to become abusers themselves.
Thus continuing the cycle of violence in the next generation.
Hello, I'm Charles Aloma. Join the LDM Network in a safe horizon and take a step into changing these facts. So if you are or know someone that is being abused, please call the City Domestic Hotline at 1-800-621-4673. So that is 1-800-621-HOPE.
Speak up.
Speak out.
And make a difference.
And just know that you don't have to deal with this alone. There is help.
And with that, like I said, there's a lot going on, especially even on the local level. So first, I want to talk about what's happening here in the city. Uh, Strand Bookstore is a major location here in New York. A lot of people have been going there for years. It's, in one of the centers of the city, and they're finally going to be closing because after this whole COVID thing, their profits have gone down by like 70%. So that's something that's happening. I know there's like a Save Strand campaign on Facebook or whatever. The fact of the matter is, if Barnes and Nobles has to close down some of its places, a small business like Strands, it's no surprise. And this just goes back to what I was talking about before, where the government really needed to focus on helping people with small businesses. That extra $600 that people were getting, just for sitting on your behinds doing nothing, the money that wasn't going to essential workers, all of that should have just at least been going to the small businesses, because a lot of people, that's how they've been making their living, working at these places, building these places, creating it, keeping it open for the community, especially in cities, more so than suburbs. It's what makes the cities unique, those small businesses, those family businesses, those unique landmarks. And to lose something like Strand, it sucks, because that's definitely one of those things that was very New York. You know what I'm saying? So that's a big loss for the city, but you know, it's just something, another thing 2020's taken from us. It's been a hell of a year, and thank God it's almost over. Like, you know what I'm saying? But yeah. Other than that, we also have some good things I want to talk about. So, Winter Village is going to be coming back to Bryant Park. Bank of America hosts that over there on 34th Street, and they have the Bank of America building right over there on 34th Street. So they're bringing back Winter Village. So, they're going to be doing some crowd control, but you'll be able to ice skate again and do what you normally do over there. It's a great spot for the families to go and take the children to when the weather gets colder. So that's going to be a thing again. We also have Stardust Diner holding and hosting a Halloween event. So they're going to be hosting a Halloween costume contest, and they're going to have a Halloween concert there. I want to get your opinions on this. Do you think that it's a good idea for them to be hosting such things with COVID still being a thing? A lot of people are talking about whether or not this is going to be a second wave of COVID hitting, and a lot of people have seen that in Queens and in Brooklyn they were hit again. Manhattan's been pretty good in no spikes. Bronx has been pretty good in no spikes. But I also think that they were higher in exposure earlier, so perhaps the second wave won't hit them as hard. There's a second wave hitting the country very hard. So do you think that, although I think it's an attempt at doing something good, and I know the city is going to be having some very strict Halloween policies for businesses and public spaces this year, do you think it's smart for someone to be holding a concert and contest that's going to draw in crowds this Halloween? Voice your opinion. Comment below on the streams on whichever platform you're on, or comment on the Wills Review fan page on Facebook. All right. I just want to hear from you guys every now and again. Something interesting that happened in New York that I think made me chuckle, and it shouldn't have. The feds recently did a bust in Brooklyn. It was a narcotics bust, but a lot of residents in this area are now scared that ICE is going to be doing these busts. So here's my thing, right? That this is a regular cop, narcotics bust. They caught the individual. They found a lot of money and drugs, and they did the normal protocol. Things went how they were supposed to go, right? But now people in this area are complaining that ICE can do the same thing. Now, if you're this worried about it, truth be told, aren't you kind of like highlighting yourself for ICE to come through? Like, you're admitting to the fact that there are a number of illegal individuals in the area. Like, the news is talking about you people making complaints about. You get what I'm saying? Like, if residents feel something in their area is wrong and they don't say anything, nobody knows anything, right? But y'all really putting it out there, like you really blowing yourselves up there. Look, this is New York City. We have an entire borough of people who barely speak English. If ICE is coming to New York, they're coming to Queens first. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay? There's no reason to ever get whatever. And there are a lot of people who are not from the city who don't understand this. I'm very serious. I'm not trying to be funny. We have an entire borough of people. A lady was mad at me for not speaking Russian in this borough. Right? I'm not saying it's just Spanish. I'm not saying it's Chinese. There's an entire borough of people who don't speak another language. To get hired for certain jobs, it's mandatory that you have to speak the language of the area in places associated with Queens. It's just one of those things. So if ICE is going to randomly walk up and try and find people who are illegal, and yes, illegal, people like to say undocumented. Just because you make a word nicer doesn't make it any less different. They are illegal if they are not legally allowed to be here. And so if they don't have the documents, they're illegal. Illegal individuals in this country would more than likely be located in that borough than Brooklyn. Also, if you do have a large number of illegal individuals in the area, shut up your mouth. Okay? Like, don't blow it up. I thought the fact that I'm reading this in the paper too was like, seriously? They're blowing themselves up. And the cops are just there to do a narcotics bust. So, it's ridiculous to me. But something else that cracked me up was, again, this is now a Brooklyn. Brooklyn cops arrested someone, and guess what? It wasn't because they were illegal. It was because this was the lady who they've been looking for months who walked into the Bronx Zoo lion cage. So now she's finally locked up in a cage. There we go. So yeah. All that's happened locally in New York and stuff like this is why I love my city. But speaking of my city, they are now joining Seattle and Portland in suing Donald Trump. You know, every episode, there's always something to talk about with Donald Trump, isn't there? There's always something. So Donald Trump has labeled certain cities as anarchist jurisdictions, right? Because they just don't like him, and they make it public they don't like him. But in doing so, by putting cities on this labeling list, the government doesn't want to fund them the same way. And I'm sorry, and I'm gonna say this, and many people may not agree. There are certain cities in this country that can't fail. They just can't, because when they do, and if they do, the country just economically, which is something Trump's supposed to care about, doesn't work. So if New York City needs government funding, there shouldn't be any questions about if they deserve it. It's that how do we get it to them? And in this particular case, this lawsuit should be open and shut. New York City is the heart of the global economy, not just America, but the global economy. And when we reached the Depression last time, it's because the New York Stock Exchange finally fell, along with the rest of the market. Look, people, you need New York. You may hate us, you may find us rude, you may find us arrogant, you may think we're the most annoying people in the world. But guess what, suckers? You need us. So there should be no reason, anarchist jurisdiction or completely rebellious or whatever, ever, be no reason why we don't get whatever money that we need for the transit system to run the economy that really helps hold this country down. A country that we often don't even agree with. But we're stuck with you guys. They won't let us do the Vatican City thing. So, Trump, I normally try and cut you some slack, but I believe I've also said this to you on my podcast. I don't care who pays me, just make sure somebody does. In this case, pay my city. You need us. Period. It's not a matter of whether or not you like us or not. You need us. Get her done. Trump also had the debate with Biden this past Thursday, and in all honesty, both candidates did very well. Trump and Biden did very well. Some would say that Trump's standard is lower for him to do well, and you know what? That may be. But they had strong moderation this time around, or as strong as can be when you're talking with both Trump and Biden in person, right? A lot of personal jabs, but at the same time, it wasn't as much as, let's say, that first debate. There was a lot of nonsense spoken in that debate that had nothing to do with anything being spoken about topic-wise. This debate was not as amusing, although I did find myself laughing a lot. It's just that Trump didn't do what he needed to do to win, as far as I'm concerned. A lot of people, you're seeing it across America in the last, especially the last 48 hours. Long lines everywhere for early poll voting, right? People have been sending in ballots. I think the U.S. Postal Service has already done 100 million ballots collected. But all in all, there's a large voice of people who don't agree with the current administration, right? And we're seeing that. And Trump needed to sway some voters. A lot of people seem to be very polarized going into these debates. These debates are supposed to meant to be able to get your last chance to sway some of these swing votes, these swing states. And down to the wire, a lot of people are saying they still don't know who they want to vote for going into Election Day. A lot of people are saying that they're still clearly sticking with who they were talking about before. And I don't think any candidate really gained anything from these particular debates. I think people pretty much have had their mind made up going into this election season, one way or another. Depending on which app you're using, you can actually follow a trend of people who are very pro-Trump or very pro-Biden. And the scariest thing for a lot of Americans is realizing how many people just hate both. We saw record numbers of voting when Obama was running. Whether or not it was for Obama or against Obama, people came out. This time around, I don't think we're going to see records like we saw then. We might see record numbers in certain communities, but overall, I think we're going to see about numbers very similar to the last election. Maybe slightly higher, but a lot of people are still saying they don't care. They don't like either one. I know a lot of people who fell off with Joe Biden the moment that he picked Kamala Harris. And a lot of people think the VP don't count, but it counts. Like, it cost McCain an election. In my lifetime, it cost someone an election. And in this case, it's cost Biden some support. A lot of people are really bringing up her record and how it doesn't speak to a lot of the words that she was saying. We'll see how this election season plays out. I'm very interested in seeing the final results. But, again, we're New Yorkers, so it doesn't affect us the same way it does a lot of other people. Our governor and our mayor almost have as much pull as a president when it comes to things involving this city. So as long as we keep our local politics strong, we're good. But there were some other things that I would like to get to. So one of my favorite childhood shows is coming back. The Animaniacs has been signed for 8 episodes on Hulu, which will also include the shorts of Pinky and the Brain that made them so beloved. I saw the trailer. I've posted it up online on the Facebook page, so check it out. It looks absolutely hilarious. I can't wait for it to come out. Like, I'm just super hyped for that. Also, the Pope has made waves this week. Now, it's very rare that I'm going to talk about the Pope because I'm not a Catholic. But the Pope said that he agrees with civil unions, right? And by civil unions, it's that thing that same-sex couples had the right to before they had the right to marriage in states, right? And in all honesty, a lot of Catholics are upset at the Pope for agreeing with this idea that same-sex couples should have the same rights as married couples. Now, this was the biggest issue, is that the civil union I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but it supposedly does not allow for all of the same legal rights as a married couple, which is why same-sex couples were fighting very hard for marriage license. It wasn't just an expression of love. It was that there was a legal aspect to it, to the marriage license that they were missing out on. Now, my thing is this. If the Pope says a civil union is fine, is that he's understanding the fact that all people deserve love, right? His issue may be with the terminology marriage, which a lot of people were saying that the way to solve the issue with, the alphabet community is that you just put in all the same legal clauses into a civil union. It's that the idea of marriage and, the technical sense is supposed to be between a man and woman on the religious value thing, right? It kind of makes sense that the Pope would be okay with civil unions. He's not against people being in love with each other. He's against the literal terminology of what God had said to whatever. I don't know why anyone's even mad. First off, the Pope is the leader. So screw how you feel. Just follow what he says. If he says it's cool, then it's cool. Like, rock with it. Right? Like, wasn't this guy at one point talked about for being a Nazi or the Pope before him or something like that, right? So if you could have a Pope who went out and killed all the Jews, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, why do you care if he's like, well, let gay people be, as close to married as God should allow them to be. Like what's the issue with this? I don't get it. It's interesting to me when people will quote a leader to back up their opinion, but the moment that the leader shares a different view, now you're willing to voice your own individual voice, right? Which means that these thoughts are your own. These negative thoughts that you want to blame on other people or this is how it should be, whatever. No, it's just what you believe, and just own up to it. If you a hater, you a hater. That's it. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. I say let the Pope be. The Pope's trying to be as progressive as he can be. I mean, isn't that a positive in modern era, right? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. On that note, we're gonna go to our second commercial break, and when we come back, we're gonna get to the movies that you should skip, take a shot, or watch.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce the dynamic Ricky Saw Jr.
Yeah, man. Let's show these people what I got. You alright with that? Tonight, we're gonna have a real good time. Tonight will be the greatest time of our lives. I'm really feeling that I could soar through the sky. No need to stop me 'cause I'm way too high. Come with me to a place with no end and dance through the night singing la di di da. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I'm saying you got to let loose and free yourself from wicked evilness that is in the air. Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Tonight, we're gonna have a real good time.
So we're back. Charles, you got the fans of the week ready? We're gonna do that right quick. Yeah, figured we should do that before we get to the movies. But I think first we have Patricia Romero, right? So yeah. It's in my face. What's in my face? Oh, no, nobody hit my face. Please. But yeah, so we have Patricia Romero and Jackson Castle from Facebook. Both have been very active followers for some time. Then we have Just K28 and Mr. T Less from Instagram. Just K. Charles with the perviness in the background, and Mr. T Les bringing back the 70s, right? So yeah, well, I guess the 80s. Either way, it's before my time. Yeah, but it's before my time. I guess you had to be born in the 70s for that to be the look by the time you hit the 80s, right? But yeah, so shout out to them. But then our picture of the week is a question that has been quite interesting. So, ladies, this one's for you. Would you wait 90 days for a man to spend money on you? I'm gonna just leave that there for a moment. But yeah. No! Yeah, we all know. So yeah, that was something that I saw going around the internet all week long, and it cracked me up because of the answers that were getting posted. And most of them were actually from dudes just laughing because we all know what the answer is. So yeah, so that was what was going on there. But let's get to these movies and these series, because surprisingly, there's a lot that we need to watch. And imagine how busy that my week has been, because I watched all of these, including the ones that should be skipped. So, first off, we have the stuff that we're gonna skip. So, Black Butler season 2 and the OVA, right? And in this case, the OVA is a mini third season with 6 episodes. I forgot just how annoying the bad British voiceover accents were after watching season 1. And so, look, season 2, season OVA, Black Butler, overall, skip it, man. I was hoping it would get better. It gets way more convoluted, making a lot less sense, and just stays as annoying. I will say season 2 is a bit more quick-paced because a lot of stuff is now established. Like I said, it gets way more convoluted. It's not that great. I mean, by the end of it, all you can do is appreciate some of the action scenes, and that's it. Skip it. Don't waste your time. Skip it. Another series that's been on Netflix is part of the reality stuff called Back with the Ex. It's a series with couples who, are trying to reconnect with, their greatest love of their lives. Conceptually, I like the idea of it. Actually watching it, it runs over its novelty value by episode 4. I mean, this isn't like a game show. This isn't really like a contest. There isn't too much going on. I mean, there's points where, oh, you're living at my house, you're living at their house, whatever the case may be. But it's just after a while, I say about you get 4 or 5 episodes in and you kind of just figure it out. I would suggest watching, 90 Day Fiancé or Married at First Sight more. There's a lot more going on in those shows, even on a drama level, that just is more interesting. And I'm disappointed because a lot of the European series like this one are usually better, and this was not at all. Last but not least is a movie I had a little bit of excitement for, but all in all, it just turned out to be a crappy John Wick. Valley of Violence. And it's a movie about a guy who I guess is kind of a badass, ends up going to the wrong town and found some people who thought they were more of a badass, kill his dog, and now he goes on a revenge spree. Like I said, a crappier John Wick. Look, people, there's a moral to this story, and it's simply this. Don't kill people's pets. That's it. You don't need to watch a movie for this. And if you did, you probably saw John Wick. There's no point in watching this movie. Valley of Violence was a really boring, it was a really boring waste of 2 hours because it was very meh, very predictable. It was very corny, very, very crappy John Wick. Now, there are some series that hit Netflix and recently that are worth taking a shot on. And I say that because it doesn't necessarily mean it's for everyone, but I think a lot of you will like them. And not just on Netflix, but also on Crunchyroll. I wanted to talk a little bit to my geeks this week. So first and foremost is the overly anticipated Inuyasha Part 2 called Yashahime, which is the story of Inuyasha's daughter and the second generation of heroes, in a sense. This show, I would say, is moving a lot faster and a lot better than the original Inuyasha series. The art style is very similar. A lot of the action is pretty good. It's pretty entertaining. But part of what made Inuyasha a big fan appeal was the development of stories and characters. And although it wasn't my cup of tea, it's what a lot of the fandom, especially these Gen Z fandom who was looking to rewatch old shows, liked about it. So in that regards, this show doesn't do that, and so I don't think it's gonna hit the mark the same way that the original series did. However, I think it's probably a better series than Boruto is to Naruto. So perhaps, I say take a shot. Nobliss is a webtoon that's been going on for a long time that actually has a older anime series, and this show picks up where the last one left off. The only thing about this show is that it's very slow, and especially being a part two to a series, why is it so slow? We already know what's going on with characters and what stuff's supposed to be, and you're not. I mean, there was a big release for this online about the connection to the past series. So there's no reason for the pacing to be slow, but the action is solid. It does keep true to the webtoon, and I would say give it a shot. Recently on Netflix, we had a movie drop called Yes, God, Yes, which is a story of a girl who lives in a very Christian environment and starts to discover that perhaps there are a lot of hypocrites where she's from because sex is the talk of the town. This is a really slow-paced movie. It has a lot of that awkward feel of a movie like Juno, even Napoleon Dynamite at times, especially with the amount of quiet that's done throughout the movie. I don't know where their fan appeal for this movie comes from. I would guess someone who goes to Catholic school, perhaps in Kansas or Nebraska. I mean, the movie takes place in the 1990s, so maybe that's why it also feels like it's outdated. But I couldn't help but find myself laughing to some of the cornball jokes in this movie. I just couldn't. So perhaps it'll hit you better than it hit me. I would say take a chance on it, but understand it's going to be a slow movie. Next is the movie Tremors. They released what looks like might be the last movie in the line called Shrieker Island. Everything about this movie is what you like about Tremors, and if you don't like Tremors, you won't like this movie. It doesn't do anything new as far as to gain a new audience. I think, again, this is all supposed to be the last in the line from the way that the movie makes itself to be. You get a special hunting experiment done on these secluded islands, and it turns out that the monsters couldn't be contained. That's the movie in a nutshell. You have the graboids on land, on sea, underground, and how many ways can you figure out to blow them up? I mean, that's this movie. A lot of flamethrowers, though. I did enjoy that. It's a B, C, D movie that just has a very cult fandom. If you're looking for something corny to watch, something to make you laugh, this is a solid movie to go to. There's just such a good cheeseball factor from this movie, and I mean, we're talking about a movie line that spans over 20 years. It has a formula and it works. Take a shot on it. On Crunchyroll, we have Dragon Quest: The Adventures of Dai. Dragon Quest being a very popular game line over the years, from the creators of Dragon Ball Z. It's the story of a guy who kind of goes around and works with these monsters that build his party, and they fight an evil empire. The CGI animation actually works for this series. There are a lot of cool moments. You have to remember the original artwork of Dragon Quest for the art style to make sense for some people. It's not exactly meant for kids, but it looks it. It's a fun series, but I feel like because it's staying true to the original story, it's going to be a bit dated for some, but it's a solid version of an animated form from something that has an original source, and I think that's what's important here. We often complain about people messing with series and fandoms by trying to make it more modern or more relevant when all we really want is to see what we were doing before moving now on a big screen, right? We want to see the comic come to life. We want to see the game turn into a cartoon, and they do that. So I say take a chance on this series. but this is really more so for the Dragon Quest gamers than it is for a whole audience of anime fans. It's just the fact of it. Now, last but not least is a series I really wanted to talk about because of how close it relates to what's going on in America, and that is Borat 2. Now, it's been 14 plus years since we've seen Borat. The last movie, I'm telling you to this day, still makes me laugh because I remember how much my father was laughing at this movie until the naked fight. I've never seen a man's face change so instantaneously in my life. But that movie leaves an impression on you. This movie, however, it felt dated. It felt everything about Borat. Like, I can't say that it wasn't what we liked about the first Borat. He even makes tons of references to the first Borat. It kind of helps you to deal with how corny and dated this movie comes across at first, because then you're like, oh yeah, well, at least it's, staying true to itself. But the fact is, it's not as funny. Whether it's because we're more mature now, whether it's because, well, we've seen it before, it's just not as funny. Until the last 25 minutes of this movie. Now, the point of this particular Borat is that Kazakhstan became a joke of a country after the last movie. They blamed everything on Borat. Their economy busted, and they're pissed off about it. They didn't do any better with Obama, and they believe that Trump is like the God savior of America and the world. They see that Trump is willing to try and make friends with, strong leaders, as they put it, such as Kim Jong-un, the leaders of Saudi Arabia, a bunch of these guys who are normally considered tyrant dictators and bad guys, essentially. And they were upset that Trump didn't reach out to their regime. So they wanted to extend a gift to Trump to try and get his attention. Now, in doing so, Borat is the emissary who's supposed to make this happen because he's been to America. He understands Americans, supposedly. But since his last trip, he ended up taking a dump on Trump Tower, he was to impress the second best person in America, which is Mike Pence. So, in true Borat form, we see him attempt to actually get in touch and get in contact with Mike Pence throughout the movie, and to the point where he gets kicked out of one of Mike Pence's events. And then his brilliant idea becomes, well, if we can't get to Mike Pence, we must go to Donald Trump's best friend, Rudy Giuliani. Now, many people have been talking about Giuliani making these statement stuff and trying to cover his behind. I watched this movie before really looking into why Giuliani was making news because I wanted to see what could possibly go wrong. And in all honesty, a lot. If you watch this Borat movie, you think that Giuliani is perhaps the only person actually aware or hired to be in this movie. From the get-go, this 15-year-old girl is, pretending to be a big news reporter from her country and is being very flirtatious, and Giuliani is all with it. Invites her back up to the hotel room and everything. They're in there. There's a point where he's playing with himself in front of her in the bed. And it's at that point that Borat has to jump out and be like, get away from my daughter, and kind of pull the whole thing together. Now, Giuliani's been saying he was trying to remove a mic because he didn't want to participate anymore. And all this. Look, bro, he was trying to bang a little kid, and it's very apparent. Very apparent. Because it didn't feel right with me. It's like, how did they get Giuliani to do this? But it looks so natural that I was really impressed with it. To actually then look at the scandal of Giuliani being pissed off with people making fun of him. Bro, no one made fun of you. You weren't the brunt of a bad joke. You were a freaking perv. And you should look at how into this is that he's and from the moment this girl touches his thigh. And she's completely just going along with the story and everything. I don't even know how uncomfortable she really was feeling, but this looks so natural, it was part of the script, that I was creeped out reading everything afterwards about the incident. Giuliani would have done better to try and make it seem like he was part of the cast than it was to try and be like, I was trying to pull a mic out of my pants. He was jerking off in front of a little kid, bro. Seriously. It's disgusting. Especially it being Giuliani, because he already looks like a troll. This is just... It was bad. But... yeah, I mean, other than that moment and that whole ending of the movie where it actually became really funny and awkward and truly Borat good, it was just really corny. And by the end of it, it turned into another movie that's just a big feminist statement, and then makes fun out of America. So, yay, Borat got updated 15 years. The end. Not really worth it, but if you're gonna watch it, watch just the last half hour. You got to see how much of an a-hole Giuliani makes him look. Like, this is just so bad. Just so bad what happens there. Just, yeah. All right. Now, before we go, we're going to talk about the movies and series you should definitely watch. So, for my anime fans, you need to catch up on 2 series that have popped up, and that's Jujutsu Kaisen and Iwakakeru, okay? Jujutsu Kaisen is a really dope story about a guy who ends up being possessed by one of the most evil spirits of all time. It's 4 episodes in. You're not that far behind. Catch up. This series is dope. I know a lot of people have seen the ending of episode 1 online. It only gets better from there. And Iwakakeru is a story about a girl who's discovering the thrills of competitive rock climbing. Something that's really obscure to us as Americans, but I've often find that the Japanese find some really interesting sports to tell stories about. And in all honesty, this story is so well done that you kind of get caught up in it. So if you are an anime fan, give the series a shot. You'll find it more enjoyable than it sounds just off the premise. On Hulu, you can catch up on the reboot to The Weakest Link. I will say I love Jane Lynch. She does not crack as many good jokes as the original hostess, but the series feels like it did before, where she's being a jerk. The people seem just as dumb as they are smart, and you can answer some of the questions too, so you feel more enjoyable than when you're trying to watch Jeopardy. Watch it. On Netflix, we have a couple of series that dropped. So for the kids, there is Spy Kids Mission Critical and Over the Moon. One thing I was worried about with this new Spy Kids series is that it would be a bit too childish, and it's not. I think it's something that families can enjoy together. It keeps true to the Spy Kids line, and there's a lot of good action and morals told over the 2 seasons that are there. So watch it. And Over the Moon is the story of essentially, or one of the stories of the Moon Festival and moon spirits, and this little girl who's trying to discover and prove that perhaps her father shouldn't move on in finding love, to stay true like the original moon spirits. It's a nice little touch for these movies to have music and song, and honestly, the songs in this movie are pretty catchy. The art is really incredible, and it's nice to have a story with the Asian culture that's not Mulan. So I say watch it. It's a good exposure for your kids as well. But as far as adult themes go, we have a horror movie called Cadaver. It's a foreign film about a really sketchy post-apocalyptic entertainment house and the limits of how far a mother will go for her child. I don't want to give away any more, but it's definitely worth a watch, especially in a month where we're supposed to have a bit of scare in our lives, and we're not getting it. Cadaver, watch it. Also, a really dope 6-episode series called Barbarian about the Roman invasion into the Germanic lands dropped recently. Incredible series. Honestly, the action was dope. The storytelling was amazing. I think best of all is just how much insight into these events they actually bring up. A lot of people don't really talk about it. Only like really European nations talk about certain points in their history. They even crack a joke about how the Romans couldn't tell any of the different tribes apart, which is like, really? No one can tell that white people all look alike, really? But there's a lot of really good intricacies involved because the Germanic tribes aren't all one nation, and the infighting leading to their unity against the Romans and all that is just a really good story being told. As far as the historical accuracy, who cares? Like, who cares? I would watch a documentary about it if I really cared. I want the drama. The drama is there. The action is there. And I found myself captivated every episode. The pacing is a little slow, but not so slow that you'd rather watch something else. There's a lot of detail to be told, and they get through it, and it's worth it. But last but not least is a fun movie called Love and Monsters, about a post-apocalyptic Earth where, because we shot down a meteor, we made giant insects and animals. it's really fun to watch this movie because it's about someone who has lived off or hasn't lived on the surface trying to survive on land. We've seen the premise before. In fact, there's even a series now, Last Humans Alive, that's very similar to this. That's an animated series on Netflix. It's just a really fun movie. A guy, his dog, trying to find the love of his life and braving the environment for it. There's nothing premise wise that's new and spectacular. It's just that it's really fun. There's a lot of good action, a lot of great jokes, and we'll see a lot of familiar faces in it. The big twist at the end is even entertaining. It leaves off where you want another movie. It's a solid movie that it's unfortunate won't be in theaters, but the at-home appeal still works for it. I think everybody should watch it, and you can find it on various platforms online. On that note, this has been another episode of Will's Review, and we'll catch you guys next time.